Hi everyone, it's Barney here, and welcome back to Barney Does Things. What you're seeing on screen now is a 2022 Vauxhall Corsa, and the little green band on the number plate shows that this is the all-electric version. Under the bonnet, the motor puts out 136 horsepower and 260 newton meters of torque. 0 to 60 miles an hour is dealt with in 8.1 seconds and goes on to a limited top speed of 93 miles per hour. But performance isn't the main point of this car, of course. On to batteries and charging then. We have a 50 kilowatt hour battery giving a claimed range of 222 miles. The Corsa E is capable of charging up to 100 kilowatts through its CCS connector, meaning you can charge the battery from 0 to 80% in 30 minutes, or 47 minutes at 50 kilowatts. With a common 7 kilowatts Type 2 wall box, the battery will go from 0 to 100% in 7.5 hours, but 5 hours if you happen to have an 11 kilowatt wall box, so a good overnight charge, like you would with a mobile phone. At a pinch, you can use a 3-pin socket cable, which is what I had to use, but this is not recommended because it will go from 0 to 100% charge in an agonising 22 hours. If you are only doing top-up charges, for example, between 75 to 100%, then it's not as bad. It's still slow though. This particular trim I have is the Elite Premium version, which at the time I ordered this was the top of the line model you can buy. Features include Intellilux Matrix LED headlights, 17-inch aero alloy wheels, chrome door trims, LED rear lights, partial leather seats, climate control, cruise control, lane keep assist, digital driver's display, heated front seats, heated steering wheel, and a 10-inch infotainment system with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. There are others of course, but that would take up too much time. I mean, this video is already long enough. So this all sounds rather lovely, doesn't it? But no. This was in fact the biggest mistake I had ever made. Why? Let me explain. Firstly is the depreciation. Now, unless they are a desirable make and model, a lot of cars do lose their value over time. For some history, my first car was a 52 plate Ford Fiesta Flight. Now this car had absolutely no guts to it whatsoever. It was very basic, but it was a reliable and dependable little car. Me and my dad paid £1,600 for it and sold it 3 years after passing my driving test for £500. That's a total loss of £1,100. By the way, feel free to write down these numbers and as I go along, just keep a record of them. After that, I got a Renault Sport Clio 197, my first hot hatch. I actually did my first track day in this car at Snetterton. I think it was the Snetterton 300 layout. And then I actually went to Lydden Hill with this car twice. One was for a car meet and then the other was for another track day. All of which were great fun. I absolutely recommend if you're a bit of a car guy. It was also the first car I ever modified. I put a catback exhaust system on it with a sports cat, and I did a full remap on it as well. I didn't gain a lot of horsepower, but still, it was the first car I modified. Anyway, enough gushing. I bought it for £4,300 and then I sold it for £3,250, and that was after 3 years of owning it. That's a combined loss of £1,050 or £350 a year. After the Clio, I went back to a Ford Fiesta, but this time it was the ST3. This was actually an ex-demonstrator when I bought this, and it only had about 1,700 miles on the clock. The purchase was much bigger at £15,000, but for a car that had next to no miles on it, and it was practically brand new at that stage, it was worth it. Absolutely worth the pennies. When I did the part exchange for the Corsa, I got £12,000 for it. So that's a total loss of £3,000, but that was actually after 5 years of owning it rather than 3. It would have been 3 years, but you know, this thing called 2020 happened, so Yeah, but that was a loss of £600 per year. Have you got all your notes? I hope you have, because we're now going on to the Corsa. When this was a new factory order, the total cost for this very car was £31,000. Now, keep these other notes as well. It has only done 2,500 miles. It's always kept in a garage, keys in a Faraday pouch, always kept clean, etc. Excuse me, sorry. My stomach's going crazy. As of recording this car had a part exchange valuation of £14,500. That's a loss of £16,500 in 1 year. I mean, fuck. I genuinely felt physically sick and upset from hearing that. I was genuinely kicking myself as well. But, I mean, yeah, sure, I paid off all of the finance agreement with a bank loan, but I might as well have taken that bank loan, put it in a pile, and set it on fire. Just burn the whole lot. Kind of like a low-budget version of that scene in The Dark Knight, you know, with the Joker, or Heath Ledger's Joker, just slides down that money and sets it on fire, and it's all about sending a message, that kind of thing. Well, it's a different message for this one. But anyway, moving on. The second thing is the infrastructure. Now, I'm going to use a nearby Swarco eConnect point as an example, but the prices will vary depending on which location you're at, what network you're using, and how much you actually need to charge the car up by. A standard Type 2 charge up to 22 kilowatts is 59 pence per kilowatt hour, while a rapid CCS charge up to 150 kilowatts is 79 pence per hour. So let's do some maths here using the Corsa as an example. Bear in mind this example is completely hypothetical. Let's imagine we need to charge the car up from zero. It's got no charge at all. So let's take the cost per kilowatt hour and multiply that by the battery capacity of the car. So that's 0.59 multiplied by 50 equals £29.50, and that's for Type 2. For the CCS one, you take 0.79, multiply that by 50, which equals £39.50. But as I said, these are hypothetical scenarios, but in the real world, I would say it's more between £10 to £15 on average, but do correct me if I'm wrong, however. These prices have increased over time, of course, and they will continue to do so, but that doesn't sound so bad, right? It really doesn't. So, what's the problem then? Well, that infrastructure is not there. When you get to said charge point, it can be in one of the following states. Available, but still time-consuming for the journey. Available, but there's another EV next to it, charging up, meaning you won't get the actual speeds you're after, which adds even more journey time. Sorry for the clip for the microphone. Occupied, either by a full EV or one of those sodding plug-in hybrids that doesn't need to be there, or broken. Just flat out broken. Meaning you'll have to find another charge point and rinse and repeat the same process over and over again until you get what you want. Actually, let's go back quickly to the claimed range that Vauxhall say and the costs. Yes, Vauxhall claims the Corsa E will do 222 miles. But not in my experience, it wasn't. I got 205, at best, in the summer, and about 180 miles in the winter. So, using the hypothetical scenario again, I'd be paying between, what, £30 to £40 to do basically 200 miles? I'm pretty sure if I had the equivalent petrol or diesel Corsa, if I put in £30 of fuel at minimum, I would get a damn sight more than 200 miles. I'm pretty sure of that. I also believe that even after the new car 2030 rules come into force, the infrastructure still won't be there. Actually, I just want to clarify that rule on this one. It in fact states that any new vehicles manufactured from 2030 onwards must be electric only, unless certain brands are catering for a very niche market. So your Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Aston Martins, Koenigseggs, Bugattis, Bugattis, and so on. It is not, and the key word here is not, that all petrol and diesel vehicles are to be banned from 2030. If that really was the case, it would be an extremely expensive, environmental, economical, and logistical disaster. And who knows, even by that time, we could have a whole new government and they could completely change the rule, change it slightly, or scrap it altogether. Actually, speaking of which, the third issue is indeed the government. I mean, who'd have thunk it, eh? Bear in mind, this was while Boris Johnson was Prime Minister, and we all know how well that turned out. It was his government that pushed out the incentives of the electric car by tempting us with shiny trinkets like a free wall box and huge savings on when you part exchange your gas guzzler for a brand new EV, even though said gas guzzler probably did a lot less damage to the environment than a brand new EV that's actually being built. And you know how much it takes to refine all the batteries, how much environmental damage that causes? I actually read it up recently that the amount of environmental damage that a battery production puts out for an EV is between 2,400 kilograms and 16,000 kilograms of CO2. That's less than a normal petrol car will do in 2,500 miles. Anyway, digressing. This is also not to mention... I completely went off the rails there. Anyway, moving on. Also, let's not forget that there were also huge tax savings put in place for bosses who have company car schemes for their business. Mind you, at least it's them dealing with the headaches and not the employee. However, Bojo and his cronies failed to predict just a few little things. Let's talk about those, shall we? First was the supply and demand, which in turn caused the global shortage of microchips, which in turn caused multiple major manufacturing issues across multiple industries, the infrastructure, which we previously mentioned, the actual real-world range of EVs, which I also previously mentioned, and let's of course not forget the cost of living crisis, where everything's going up through the roof. And yes, the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine is a factor in all of this. Not the key factor, just a factor. There are others too. I also mentioned I really still hope there is going to be a peaceful resolution to all of that. But it won't stop the greedy bosses of energy companies being absolutely greedy bastards. Just saying. What the government should really focus on, though, I do think, in terms of the automotive industry, is the development of synthetic fuels. You know, the ones that are being made by Porsche and the ones that are also being manufactured by a Mr. Paddy Lowe. Oh yeah, Paddy Lowe, by the way, is probably the greatest example of the use case of these fuels, because they're powering all 20 of the current cars on the F1 grid. Instead of me explaining how it all works, though, I will put a couple of links to some different videos from both Top Gear and the one from Carwow in the description, so they have a real good explanation of it. If they do this... But let's be honest, they won't really do it because the government are just idiots. But if they do this, it will save the internal combustion engine rather than kill it. But all of these things that I mentioned just now, that I ranted on about, are all outweighed by the most important and most personal thing that mattered. I lost my spark. Now, in the past, I've always had a passion for cars, whether that's admiring them, modifying them, whether it's something as simple as changing the standard light bulb for an LED one or doing the exhaust and remap that I mentioned. There are some of those factors. Also, a passion for meeting like-minded people at car meets and sharing that passion with others. Even cleaning cars, just something that's usually a chore, I actually somehow enjoyed, with all the snow foam and the iron out spray that goes purple and stuff like that. Why I enjoyed that, I don't know, but I did when I had the really nice cars. By contrast, I washed the Corsa once when it was being valued for its part exchange, and that's it. And of course, a passion for driving them. Whether that's on a winding B road or a full track day, I love that feeling of being in control, being connected with the car, being one with the car, being in the moment, having fun and smiling and being happy. And when I picked up the Corsa E that day, in fact the picture you're seeing now is the day I picked up the car, a part of me had died and it lay to rest on the forecourt. Thankfully, by the time you actually see this video, I no longer own the Corsa E. Thank God for that. And the car I have now, well, let's just say it made me learn from my mistake, and is about 20 times better as a result. Now that we've reached the end of this video, I actually want to say thank you all so much for watching it, and also for sticking with me, because of course I had this really long hiatus from YouTube, really unsure what to do, and hopefully this will spark that back up again. I would also say at this point I would give the usual like, comment and subscribe spiel, but instead I will say this. Please share this video as much as possible. It's because I would like to get a proper discussion going, whether that's in the comments section, on other social media platforms, on forums, or even face to face with people. I want to get something churning up, as it were. But please, please, please keep things civilized, but also constructive and with an open mindset. There is no need to go on the attack. If you would like to support me directly, I have set up one of those Streamlab donate link things in the description. So if you want to do that, the link's down there. It's totally optional though, you don't have to do that. But just by you subscribing is going to be more than enough support for me, honestly. And I'm really grateful for that. Anyway, I will see you whenever I upload again. See you soon.